The Oklahoma Attorney General's office is under new management for the third time in 6 years. On January 9th, Gentner Drummond was sworn in to replace John O'Connor, who replaced Mike Hunter in 2021. Drummond takes over a department with plenty on his plate. And this week, Capitol correspondent Jason Doyle sat down with the new AG to learn more about his plans and priorities.
Attorney General Gentner Drummond, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about some of the news you made this week. You've asked the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals to give you a little bit more time between 7 scheduled executions. Tell me a little bit about that move.
So I think the whole issue of capital punishment is a sensitive issue. It's the most solemn act that the state can do, taking the life of another person. But we also have victim families who have suffered immensely and are looking for that time of closure. So I feel it's important as a chief law enforcement officer to be present and participate in these executions as an observer. And last week I observed that execution. I was there with the staff, who, by the way, I have to just make a general and strong statement. The Department of Corrections staff, the H unit that handles the executions, are a remarkable gathering of professional men and women throughout the state penal system. They volunteer for this job. It takes a lot. It's a 35-day protocol. So on our current schedule of an execution every 30 days, they're dovetailing between execution and the protocol for the next execution. I observed this, became aware of this, interviewed several of the professionals, and the large consensus was this is very hard, emotionally, physically on us. But they made a point that we're soldiers. You know, we're going to do whatever the state wants. And so I asked Director Harp, would you object if I asked the Court of Criminal Appeals to give us a little bit of breathing room in between executions? And I asked specifically what would work. And he goes, if we could have 60 days, that'd be ideal. And so that's my request. I'm asking for 60 days in between executions, mainly for the mental health and the physical demand on our professionals.
You've brought the Epic Charter Schools case back to the Attorney General's office. Tell me a little bit about that move.
You know, the allegations against Epic and its founders are a statewide impact. So as opposed to a crime that occurs in Nowata County, that should be prosecuted in Nowata County. But in this case, to the extent a crime has occurred, it's occurred statewide, impacted 77 counties. That belongs at the Attorney General's office. For whatever reason, conflicts of interest or the like, it was referred down to the Oklahoma County District Attorney. But I feel passionately that the Attorney General should do the job of the people. So I've asked District Attorney Vicki Behenna if she would object if I would take that back, and she said, no, it belongs with you, and you ask and I'll give, and so she did.
All right, moving on to tribal relations. How would you like to see tribal relations improved between the state of Oklahoma and our 39 federally recognized tribes?
I think our standard is very low right now, so any improvement will be welcomed by all citizens of Oklahoma. I grew up in Indian Territory, in Osage County, on a cattle ranch. My DNA recognizes what is important to the Native Americans of Oklahoma. Don't pretend to be a Native American, don't pretend to know what Native Americans want, but I feel passionately that we should bridge the gap between the disconnect of the tribes and the state government. And that begins with criminal justice. Presently, we have some degree of dysfunction and cacophony in the eastern part of the state. I talked to my federal colleagues, and they can't give us a civil jury trial for the next 2.5 years because they're backlogged with the prosecution of Native American criminals. And so it is probably the highest priority of my administration to find a solution to the McGirt dilemma. And I've worked steadfastly and diligently with excellent professionals in the 5 tribes toward a solution that I think that we will eventually have.
As many already know, Oklahoma is filled with illegal marijuana grows. What can the Attorney General's office do to assist law enforcement to address that issue?
On several fronts. One, just an awareness. We've elevated this discussion. So people who live in our urban centers don't really understand or see or appreciate what's happening in rural Oklahoma. So what we have are almost 10,000 grow operations that are out there consuming electricity, water, producing significant amount of waste. That's fine. We're going to have to deal with that as a state. But what's more profoundly impactful is that we have been invaded effectively from illegal operators, principally of Chinese nationality, that have entered our state illegally, that are growing illegally. And what was once a localized issue has now become a national issue. And we've now got the attention of our national law enforcement agencies, because Oklahoma is a huge net producer of marijuana products across the United States. We need to stop that. It's an embarrassment to our state, but I don't want to diminish the significant impact that Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics has had, OSBI. We've had great law enforcement agencies that are making an impact. We need the chief law enforcement officer to own it and coalesce all agencies toward a solution.
A few years back, we started looking at the rape kit backlog here in Oklahoma. As Attorney General, that lands back into your lap. What do you plan on doing with the remaining rape kits and getting them tested?
So, the rape kit is a sensitive issue to me because it is such an important vehicle through which we can capture DNA data, put it into a nationwide database, and the rapist that raped once, more likely than not, will rape again. And I want him caught. And so if you're a rapist, don't do it in Oklahoma, because we're going to test our backlog of rape kits, put the data into the system, find and snuff out these bad actors.
So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking your time out for us today, Attorney General Gentner Drummond.
My pleasure. Thank you.